All right. So welcome to people that are joining us on YouTube and also to the people that have shown up here on the Zoom call. Thank you so much for being here and having some connection time before we start the talk. It really feels good. November 4th, 2020. Yes. So I'm going to begin with a beautiful teaching that comes in the form of a poem from Rosemary Watola Tromer. And for YouTube folks, I will paste that underneath the video, and it's here in the chat for people that are on Zoom as well. And she wrote or presented this poem today. She on her website, 100 Falling Veils, you can subscribe to receive the daily poem. So she's committed to presenting a poem every day, which is extraordinary. I also encourage, if you're on Facebook, you can friend her. I'll write her name here so you could find it. And she reads a poem every day, often from other authors, but she just does a live reading. And so her name is also there in the chat. And this one is, again, just extraordinary, called Meeting This Moment. And it is written for now. Meeting This Moment by Rosemary Watola Tromer. There was that night when the cats were frightened because they saw a feral butterscotch cat outside the door. And for days they yowled and shrieked at each other out of fear of what they didn't understand, intimidated by what they didn't know how to fight. So they fought each other. Displaced aggression, said the vet, and she encouraged us to give them space. Today, when the news is full of butterscotch cats that come to my door, I understand the instinct to wail, to caterwaul. I understand the impulse to fight with someone, anyone, to raise my voice, to find my claws, to hiss and arch and attack. In an effort to discharge this aggression that pumps in me, churns like a river in flood stage, filled with debris and mud. And that is when some inner voice, a voice so quiet, it's almost impossible to hear, suggests singing is still an option. Suggests, can you shine in this moment? Suggests, if you choose to speak only love, if you choose to give space, how might that change the only thing you are able to change? I encourage you to read this one again. There's just so much beauty and wisdom here. Pardon me, in this poetic teaching. And, you know, so we were kind of checking in at the beginning here to see, you know, how is this day and these days affecting your being? What's happening inside of you, of us? Is it in reactivity to others around us, or even further afield, you know, reacting to people that we don't know on social media or something, that kind of anonymous reactivity that we get to do these days as we await these tumultuous election results. but also not to be deluded that whatever this outcome, that it could soothe or ease the deep and systemic roots of racism, sexism, privilege, and inequality. That no matter what this outcome is going to be, we still have to do this deep and persistent work with wise effort, wise action, wise speech, wise intention. So like these cats that feel this sense of danger and then fight with each other because they don't know, they're intimidated and in this hyper alert place. Yeah. So I'm, she also mentions here that to discharge this aggression that pumps in me churns like a river in flood stage. And I'm very fortunate to live near a river. And at the top of the river is a dam. And they control the river as best they can with this dam opening and closing depending on rains and melting, etc., and forecast. And so sometimes it's really turbulent and really high waters and churning in all directions. Sometimes it's quite placid and calm, and people could float down in inner tubes occasionally. But lately, the dam was open and the waters were high and turbulent. And just like these days may be for us, very fast moving, turbulent, unpredictable. And if we imagine going down a river like this in a kayak or a canoe, something like this, and up ahead, we can feel that there's, maybe rapids, a waterfall even, or, you can kind of get a sense of the momentum of the river moving along. And sometimes you can see there's rapids up ahead, and we so desperately want to avoid the rapids. We desperately want to find ourselves on safe ground, on safe shore. And it's beyond our control. We cannot always get out of the river. We can't get out of this moment that we're in time. Is beyond our control. And so in order to traverse this turbulence, this not knowing, this unpredictability, we really need our practice of equanimity. How do we stay balanced in our vessel, let's just say a kayak, to traverse safely? I remember we were in rafts, but a river like this in Costa Rica, and and it also had crocodiles. Yes, you could see them on the shore, and there were times where the guides who really know this terrain so well and would be skillfully guiding us and instructing us of when to paddle, and when to go with the current, stop paddling, lift our paddles and just let the current take us. And other times where it's like paddle, 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 to navigate these different intensities. And so how do we find that inner discernment of what's needed today? Yeah, I have a dear friend who we have this conversation like, what's needed today? Is this a day of rest, legs up day? Is it a day of quiet, tuck away, or go to the lake? Or is it a day I can engage and really paddle and really get in the canoe? Or, is it a time to lift the paddle or to really paddle hard? This is the practice of equanimity. Is not that we can control the river. It's how do we navigate skillfully these waves coming and going? How do we find our center of gravity, our balance within the storms of life? So one of the things I watched today was it's a Facebook video conversation between two authors. I'll put their names also down below in the YouTube version of this. But for here on Zoom, I'll also type it in the chat here. So Janine Urbaniak Reed, who wrote a memoir, which I would like to read, called The Opposite of Certainty. Great title. The Opposite of Certainty. And she's sharing in this memoir, I haven't read it yet, but yeah, her experience of these times. And she has a young child who has brain tumors or tumor, and all that brings. But lots of wisdom and humor as well. And so this author, Janine, is in conversation with another amazing author called Annie Lamott. And she's written many, many books, wonderful books. And her latest one, I don't think it's out yet. I don't think so. It's coming soon, called Dusk, Night, Dawn, on revival and courage. Revival, sorry to be typing while I'm talking, but I really like to give credit where credit is due. And this is some amazing teachings in these books. So these two friends are having this conversation about their work and about these times, about COVID. Oh, they call it COVID college. Isn't that great? That's so good. COVID college, instead of like, and again, it's like what Terry was saying and Marlene, that, not in a sense of denial of how painful the isolation may be or how welcome it may be, but this is our school right now. We could also call it election college. What are we learning here? What's the practice? What's being highlighted? What's the being asked to be known, as Marlene was talking about. Okay, so in their conversation, these two, they said many wonderful things. I don't know if I'd be able to link to their conversation, but if you friend either one of those authors, you'd be able to find that conversation if you're on. It sounds like a Facebook promotion tonight. I don't mean it to be that, but sometimes there's great things. So one of them talks about living a life you don't hate in circumstances that you do. I think it was Janine talking about this, maybe. How to live a life that you don't hate in circumstances that you do. It's amazing, right? Because we may really dislike or hate even the circumstances that are happening right now. And so how does one live a life that we don't hate in the midst of circumstances that we do, or that we have aversion to, or that are painful or unpredictable and unknown, like this turbulent river? How do we stay in our vessel, stay low, stay in our center, and navigate skillfully? The conversation was about when life is nothing but uncertain, isn't it? When life is nothing but uncertain, how does one live life on life's terms, not my terms? Not my terms, but life's terms. This is how it is right now. This is what's showing up. How do I navigate this? And that it's okay to feel the way we do and to show up anyways. Equanimity is about opening to how things are and finding that sense of center of, sitting down low in the craft, in the kayak, in our being, in the moment, to navigate the waves of life, because the waves are going to keep coming. And equanimity isn't about controlling the waves, calming the water, because you can't. I appreciated also that, I think it was Janine again that said, it's okay to get comfortable with uncertainty begrudgingly. I love that she added the begrudgingly. Like, not trying to force herself into, be comfortable with uncertainty. Oh, it's like this. It's like, yes, that's true. It's like this, but also a little begrudgingly, like, I wish it wasn't like this. And to acknowledge that, to turn towards that, is part of this practice and path. Getting past the idea of I'll be okay when or if the election turns out this way, or COVID resolves this way, or my life, my home, my relationship, my finances are this way. I was very inspired by a dear friend and teacher, Molly Swan, who recently said this to me, and I asked her if I could share it. She gave permission. And it really reflected on it quite a bit, and it so relates to this conversation in my mind anyways. She said, today I woke up deeply feeling that any sense of ground arises from no ground. Any sense of ground arises from no ground. And we had a bit of conversation about that. And so then she, filled it out a little bit more for me of what she was meaning there. And she said, somewhere lurks an expectation that there is and can be solid ground if I get things right. And that's just like what Janine and Anne Lamotte were saying, that this feeling that I'll be okay when or if, this sense of wanting solid ground, wanting things to be known and understood and manageable, navigable, controllable, really. And so it's really seeing the groundlessness of it. It's all impermanent. It's not mine. It's not. It's all conditioned, changing, impermanent, unreliable, and how do we find the ground with that? This is nature. This is how things are. This is the river. How do we navigate this? So she says, she laughs at herself, and then Molly said, so my sense is to lean into more consciously the myth of that. Isn't that so great? Thank you, Molly. Oh, wow. To lean into the myth that there can be solid ground if I get things right. And so to acknowledge that, oh wow, I'm holding on to some wish, some myth that it could be some other way, and just open to that, lean into that, know that that's what's happening. And there is some ground in the groundlessness. So we're all riding these waves right now of our personal, very personal, some people are sharing some of the personal turbulence that's happening in and around our lives. We all have this, but also our collective, our absolutely global collective grief and the circumstances and the immensity of injustice and fear and so much of this collective, global, personal turbulence is under the surface, is unconscious, is not really brought up into the full light of awareness because maybe we feel too overwhelmed to really feel this. And a lot of times it's like that undercurrent under a river, or where there's an undertow that can really do a number on us, just like these cats fighting with each other, just as Rosemary said, this impulse to fight with someone, anyone, to raise my voice, to find my claws, to hiss and arch and attack. So sometimes these currents, personally and globally, collectively, are having their way with us, are tossing and turning us in directions that may cause reactivity and unskillfulness. And you might feel like this sometimes, like you just wake up and you're in a mood, or feeling pretty okay one moment or one day, and the next in despair. And not really knowing what's changed, what's triggered it, what's going on. I don't know. It's just, it's like this today. It's like this now, or this moment, or this hour. And I think that's just the nature of these times, perhaps. This groundlessness. This feeling of trying to control the parts that are beyond our control. And so what do we do? So here's another cat story. This one's from Joseph Goldstein. And I forget which book. Okay. So Joseph Goldstein shares this cat story. In India, he shares, I was living in a little hut about 6 feet by 7 feet. It had a canvas flap instead of a door. I was sitting on my bed meditating, and a cat wandered in and plopped down on my lap. I took the cat and tossed it out the door. 10 seconds later, it was back on my lap. We got into a sort of a dance, this cat and I. I tossed it out because I was trying to meditate, to get enlightened. But the cat kept returning. I was getting more and more irritated, more and more annoyed with the presence of the cat. Finally, after about a half hour of this coming in and tossing out, I had to surrender. There was nothing else to do. There was no way to block off the door. I sat there, the cat came back in, and it got on my lap. But this time I did not do anything. I just let go. 30 seconds later, the cat got up and walked out. And then he says, so you see, our teachers come in many forms. Maybe our teachers even come in the feral butterscotch cats, or the ones filling our news feed. This surrendering, this is how it is. When he stopped fighting and trying to push the cat out, and so it could get enlightened. And then the cat left. It's so good. What are we fighting that is beyond, that is fruitless? And where can we direct our attention skillfully? In what ways can we engage and make the world a better and more loving and safe place for all beings? And so then Janine and Anne in this conversation talked about how do we do this? How do we ride these waves? And the first thing they said was, we do it together. They obviously have a deep friendship. They also have a very deep faith, a tradition that they share together. They talk quite a bit about their faith, and but we do it together. That's just really touching. Just right now feeling this sense of connection with each other. The people that maybe are on this call, people that are on a path of compassion and wisdom, people that may be listening in later or not. We do this together. And then they said, we laugh a lot. Wow, it's difficult. How much laughter is in your life these days? It's not that easy to come by, perhaps, especially when we're isolated. But Anne called it the carbonated holiness of laughter. What? So good. The carbonated holiness of laughter. Oh gosh, isn't that gorgeous? It's just like carbonated, that effervescence of these times of joy. And Terry was talking about this, of like, even in our grief, and even in these times of loss, there was kind of some sweetness or joy that also showed up there. And then they said, and we're so gentle with each other. Oh my God. So gentle with each other. This is how they navigate. Janine said, the more we are kind and gentle with each other, the more I internalize that voice. Oh boy. The more we are kind and gentle with each other, The more I hear that kindness and gentleness from dear ones, from anyone, the more I offer that to anyone, the more we can all internalize that voice and really give ourselves this compassion, love, kindness. It's so interrelated and reciprocal and flows one onto the other. We can create a different kind of river, perhaps. And similarly, in Rosemary's poem at the beginning, she ends with this voice so quiet, it's almost impossible to hear, that whispers, it suggests, if you choose to speak only love. And there it is again, what choice do we make when we're in the turbulence, when we're in fear, when we're feeling groundless? Another how that they discussed was we create holy space, even if we're stuck in our own homes. How can we create holy space in our environment, in our garden, in our yard, on our little balcony, in your neighborhood park, in your home, a little corner, or create holy space internally? That inner stillness, that safety, that love, compassion. This is holy space. I know it's a long talk tonight, but lots of, yeah. The last thought here of how we do this, was something that Janine said from another conversation. Somebody said this to her, I think, was to be where your feet are, literally. Be where your feet are. Such a great little phrase, right? So this is like the narrow lens we've talked about before. In our practice, we can have a narrow lens, zoom lens, is that right? Zooming in, or we can have a wide lens. And so the zoom lens or narrow lens is where we pay attention to one anchor in the present moment, like be where your feet are, literally. So when she was, in grief and turmoil and fear around her sick child, plus her other children, she's like, just literally just look around. Where am I? Breathe. In this moment, I'm actually okay. When the mind gets into future or past or all the worst case scenarios, not okay. In this moment, where my feet are right now, I'm actually okay. Okay with not being okay. Okay with the groundlessness. Okay with the tumultuousness. Paying attention to what's right in front of us. So this is one way for us to practice, is coming close. Pay attention to our sense doors, what's happening right now. And another way to practice is with this wide lens. As the veterinarian in the poem says about the fighting cats, give them space. Give ourselves space, that wide view. Is this a day when I need to tuck into my quiet corner of the house or go to a big open space? And internally, do I need to just rest on an anchor, my breath or touch points of the ground? Or open up my attention and really include a bigger field of awareness and perspective. And lastly, with this analogy of the river and the canoe or kayak, navigating this groundlessness, this tumultuousness, the the kayak beneath us, or the canoe, the vessel that we're, or our body, the vessel that we're navigating our life with, can be seen as our sangha, our community, our friends, our teachers, our safe places of where we can speak our truth. We also have the vessel to navigate this through our ethics, our precepts, our guidelines, and our intentions to not cause harm or to make amends when we have caused harm. Or, yeah. If you don't feel that sense of community, reach out, find in what ways can that be developed? Can that be nurtured? Make connections, send messages, ask for help. And there's lots of connections that can be made. And thank you for showing up here for this. Okay, let's have some practice. Sorry, it was a long talk tonight. Let's practice this. So many great ways to practice here. Take a sighing breath and let go of all of these words. Let your hands come to rest and your eyes come to rest. It's difficult sometimes when we're in front of these devices to want to kind of engage in other ways. So let's just give a few minutes here of stillness and quietude. And see as you turn your attention inward, if there is a sense of tumultuousness, you might feel this like a waves or jitteriness or vibration in the body, restlessness, tension. So first just noticing if any of those sensations are showing up for you. And then we can gently start with that narrow lens to be where your feet are, literally. Feel your feet. And taking time to pay attention to an anchor to help calm and center in the center of your vessel. So that might be the feeling of breath or the ground. Or sounds. Just choosing one anchor and really knowing that. When attention is tumbled aside into other waves, really gently attune to what's right in front of us, what's right here, right now. In this moment, can there be an okayness with however it is? Now we'll gently begin to open that lens of attention to a bit of a wider lens, giving space to how things are. So rather than keeping your attention tight on one anchor, just feel a sense of your awareness being wider and bigger than your body. Just an open, attentive knowing. And knowing that we are lovingly held. You are being lovingly held. You are held. You are loved. Giving space and speaking only love. How might that change the only thing we're able to change? Our relationship to how things are. That quiet inner voice suggesting, can you shine in this moment? And just before I end the recording, and then we can share some more reflections if you like in the Zoom group or not, as you choose. But just want to end with this offering prayer from Lama Rod Owens, whose book is called Love and Rage, I believe. Lama Rod Owens offered this. A shout out to all of us who are struggling today. If you are praying, keep praying. If you are working, keep working. If you are crying, offer your sadness to the ancestors. If you need rest, let the earth hold you. If you feel overwhelmed, go and let the silence find you. If you are numb and terrified, call on the Mother. If you are feeling stable and resourced, dedicate some of that energy to others who feel depleted. If you are giving up on love today, it's okay. I will love on your behalf and know that I am offering it back to you. Calling on the blessings of Audre Lorde, may I erupt into spontaneous joy, and may this joy be how I wage political warfare. From Lama Rod. So just before we open up the discussion off the recording, there will be links below in YouTube to, if you're able to support the ongoing work of True North Insight, offering these online teachings and many retreats and courses. Or if you're able to support me as you're able, that's much appreciated, so I can continue sharing Dharma. Thank you for that. And I will be back next Wednesday, all things being, if that's possible, I'll be here. All right, so thank you. Stop recording.